bucket where we had to continue. We continued paying the staff, and the students were not coming to the buildings for daycare, and there was no revenue generation coming through. And then there was some non-personal costs like PPE and things like that. So that was round one, and we have fully expended the amount. Yeah. Mary, next slide, please. Then we had the gear funding. 1.30 million was the full amount that we received. The Des Moines public share was $1.22 million, which was leveraged to provide almost around 10,000 hotspots for our kids, because a lot of kids, as you know, did not have connectivity at home, and we going fully virtual, there was no way we could have provided the education without providing the hotspots. Along with the hotspots, we also had to provide laptops because a lot of kids did not have laptops, and we were not on one-on-one in our school buildings laptops for students. So we had to acquire almost 15,500 laptops. Some of it came through the gear funding, but majority of it came through ESSER funding. Yeah. ESSER 1, 2, yep, basically ESSER 1 and 2 and gear funding. Next slide. So SR2 was a little larger amount, $41 million. We continued paying the Metro kids because even though the school started coming back in in-person learning, it was still not breaking even. And there was also a significant portion when we were virtual. Like I had mentioned on the previous slide, connectivity for the students, technology for both students and teachers over there. And the other big cost that we had was the virtual instruction that we started providing both to elementary school as well as the middle school. Safety and cleaning, which is your PPE, which we have heard so much in the press, and the PPE, which some of you may not realize, we had to purchase PPE for our band and music instruments. We could no longer share those instruments. We had to purchase a very different kind of PPE for those things. Air quality has been under a lot of discussion. So we had to start upgrading our HVACs so that the students and staff continued to be working in a good air quality mode. And water bottle stations. Yeah. We wanted to provide that contactless water bottle station, so the kids didn't have to touch. And at that point in time, there was a lot of discussion that it was contact, which was really increasing the incidence of COVID-19. Yeah. Next slide. So FCC, or the Emergency Connectivity Fund, came a little late, but the way the program funding was working was that we had to provide how many hotspots, which was limited to $200 per device, and laptops, which was limited to $400 per device. We had to provide that request to FCC, and based on that, they would either approve it for us to purchase or deny it. So, and one of the key criteria over here was we had to justify that there was an unmet need requirement. That means the students would not be in a position to actually continue with the virtual learning if they did not have either the hotspots or the laptops for them to continue learning. So if you look into the next slide, this is where we show the different things that we had applied to FCC. And so there was almost $1.1 million. The top 6 lines are basically for hotspots. So $1.1 million for hotspots, and we had to go to all different vendors because every district, every city was scrambling for the Wi-Fi connections. So as you would see, we worked with Mediacom, T-Mobile, US Cellular, Verizon, you name it. And we worked with all of them to round up enough hotspots for our kids, which was $1.1 million. And then there were the laptops, which was $6.6 million. So it is definitely nice that we got this on top of the ESSER and the gear funding, because otherwise this would have been coming from the ESSER funding. And as you would see in the later slides, we are getting stretched thin on our ESSER funding. Yeah. Mary, if you could, yep, thank you. You read my mind, thank you. So this is a snapshot of ESSER 3. So this is the single largest funding that we received, almost $92 million. And as part of this funding, one of the requirements was that we had to spend 20%, or as you would see in the blue part of the pie chart, $18.5 million to address the learning loss. So this $20 million had to be carved out for that, and we had no give in that. The second part, we decided to carve out $30 million to provide to our facilities team so that they could improve the air ventilation in the buildings for HVAC. So almost a third of the dollars was committed to improve the air ventilation. And the rest of it went for unfinished learning loss, SEL, technology, and things like this. So the intent of ARP, the funding when it came through, was that we had till the end of fiscal 2024. So for the next 2 fiscal years, we have to spend the money, and it must be fully obligated by September of 2024. Next slide. So what exactly was the conditions for addressing the learning loss? As I had mentioned, the 20%, it must be used for evidence-based interventions to address the learning loss. And the examples were summer learning, extended day, comprehensive after-school programs, extended school year programs. We were hoping that when we pivoted to virtual school, when most of the school was in person for elementary school, and we signed a contract with Edginity, and also for our middle school, that we will be in a position to justify those costs from this 20%. The state has disagreed with our contention, so this is now coming from the overall 80% of the ESSER funds, which is definitely making it challenging for us to continue the trend that we have for the balance 80% of the ESSER funding. So if you can move to the next slide. This is where we are really spending the money, the balance 80% of the allocation, in response to and prepare for the coronavirus, facility sanitizing, indoor quality, as I had mentioned. But any projects over and above $5,000 need state approval. In all fairness, as and when we send a request to the state, they have been fairly efficient in approving these requests. Any amount that we wanted to spend on mental health services and support, maintaining equity for high poverty schools. So this is something else which was introduced a few months back, which was called the maintenance of equity effort. So we did a calculation to see, as we were allocating funds to the various buildings, were we negatively impacting any school building? I shouldn't say any school building, but the top 25% of the school buildings, as far as free and reduced lunch, who are eligible for free and reduced lunch, are we negatively impacting them either in terms of FTE or the dollar amount of spend for those buildings? So we had to benchmark compared to F1 FY21. In FY22, where are we estimating to spend? And then we're going to do the same exercise in 23. So the basic intent is not to negatively impact the students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. And this is being done for the top 25% of the schools which are eligible for that. Next slide. So these are some of the large ticket items that we have where we are spending money. So if you see, the online instruction is what I was mentioning about the virtual learning for elementary and middle school, which we were hoping it is going to go in the 20% bucket there. Then if you see hiring teaching pool, as all of you have read, nationally, we are experiencing a teacher shortage. So we decided that we need to start creating a pool of teachers, and as and when a teacher resigns or is indisposed for any reason, this pool can be leveraged to backfill that position. The interesting thing is, till at least recently, unless things have changed, till at least recently, all the teachers we have hired in these teaching pools get automatically absorbed because of the teacher shortage. So we have not really leveraged too much of that fund so far, but this is what we are projecting that we would be spending in 22, 23, and 24. So let me just clarify that this is not what we have already spent, but what we intend to spend, what we have budgeted to spend based on the different programs that we have highlighted there. Metro service and kids, food service, basically food service is not that big as much as the Metro kids, where we were basically trying to ensure that they don't run into a hole, and we continue paying the teachers and the support staff who are over there. The staffing, substitute position, as well as the hiring teaching staff. This is largely driven by paying different incentives that we are paying to hire employees across the district, as well as paying subs a higher amount than what we were paying last year so that we can get subs. That is another area where the district, not just us, nationally, everyone has struggled to really get substitute teachers. HVAC and air quality, I did mention over there. The virus response, which is mentioned over there, the other $9.4 million item is the PPE, COVID testing and treatment for the employees, the vaccination clinics that we had, all those different things. Devices of $8 million, as I had mentioned to you earlier, is for the both students and staff. And then we are implementing a data management infrastructure project to basically improve the data infrastructure for our district, because we have really pivoted in a very different situation and environment from almost in class to virtual, and we want that flexibility to be available to the students. So these are some of the major cost areas that we are spending the money. Very next slide. This slide highlights that if we were to continue spending on the areas that we think we need to spend, we would be spending $24 million more than what we are getting under ESSER. The reason why I wanted to show this slide is because we are in the process of prioritizing and seeing what is it that we have, even though today we have decided to spend, what is it that we would not be in a position to spend going forward? I think all of you have been listening to all the budget discussions and what district has been going through. When we are in the mode to cut costs, it's impossible to fund these costs coming out of our general fund budget. So it's not that we are in a situation that we have run over. This is in case we continue spending in FY23 and FY24 what we are planning to spend today. So we'll definitely prioritize it, and we'll see what are the projects that either we delay or probably eliminate what we already have in the pipeline today. So this is an ongoing thing. It is interesting when a lot of school districts see the amounts that we have received, they think, how are we going to spend it? And this slide pretty much indicates that if we continue to spend on all the various projects, we need more money, not less. Well, that's all that I have. Mary, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Shashank. Okay, so now we're going to get a little more in detail into those 4 spending categories. So we're going to talk about unfinished learning, and then social emotional learning and mental health supports, then facilities, and then technology. And if you're with us when we talked about this back in July, or if you've logged into a board meeting, you've probably seen this graphic. Putting it up on the screen again to remind you all that a lot of this work is grounded, or we've worked hard to tie it back to our goal action plan. Our work to address board goals, or the goals that the board has set for the district around early literacy for all students, and for our Black males, and algebra, success in algebra 1 for Black males, and then the social emotional learning. So you'll probably see this graphic revisited and these themes brought forward. So these are the 7 kind of buckets of work, I would call them. We call them levers. The implementation of high quality curriculum, that's a lever or a body of work or grouping of work to address what we believe is the root cause of why we're not at our desired state of reaching our goals. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Noelle and Tim.
All right, thank you, Mary. Good evening, community and DMPS staff. My name is Noelle Nelson. I'm Executive Director of Leadership and Learning for secondary schools, and my counterpart, Tim SCHOTT, is the same exact position for elementary. So we're going to be reviewing a little more detail related to what Shashanka's covered on how we're expending those funds or planning to expend those funds as it relates to teaching and learning. So that 20% that Shashank talked about is probably one of the most restrictive categories, and that was the bucket of money that is allocated for addressing learning loss. The challenge that we're running up against is we have lots of innovative things that we'd like to do, and a lot of those came out of our first meeting with this community group. The challenge is our state is not quite in alignment with us as it relates to what we would call innovative practices. So we are at this point in time going to talk about what we're confident will be approved or has been approved and how we're recovering learning loss. But then we're going to end with, and here's what we're trying to lobby for, to think outside the box and to maybe expand the scope of what we're thinking about as solutions for addressing learning loss. So of course, summer learning, that's a large ticket item. This last summer, we spent about $1 million. Hi, Susie. We spent about $1 million on summer school. We budgeted $2 million. But as you can imagine, one of our greatest issues with summer school is both getting staff who are already tired, exhausted and beat down. They're wanting a break, as you can imagine. And we also had students and families who wanted a break. So our attendance rate at summer school this summer, with the exception of high school, because they're kind of held to a standard of acquisition of credits and graduation, was around 50%. So while we want to continue to put money here, we know we need to continue to put money here. We need to be innovative on how we approach summer school. It's been a real challenge from a staffing and a student participation standpoint. The second category is extended learning and tutoring. This is one we've had tutoring partnerships, especially as it relates to community partnerships, and we'll continue to invest in those. Our challenge with scaling up, especially as it relates to extended learning, has been getting staff, beyond our school hours. So for the same reasons, we're having a hard time getting teachers to teach summer school. We're having a hard time getting them to teach longer days than they're already committing to, especially when you factor in lack of planning time, lack of prep, lack of downtime during the day, any downtime. Asking them to sign on for a couple more hours at the end of the day is a tall order. So we're actually bumping this off and going to approach it again in the fall to try to launch something in the fall. And we're optimistic that our conditions will be better, optimistic thinking, and it'll be easier to recruit staff to engage in those. And then the last one is credit recovery. That is actually part of our summer school. Currently, in our high schools especially are getting creative with night school and other ways to recover those credits. A lot of our credit recovery historically lived in junior and senior year, and we've expanded that to include 9th grade all the way through 12th grade to try to capture those kids earlier so that they don't fall behind and are at risk of not graduating. I saw a hand up. I want to say it was Andrea.
I'm sorry, that was a mistake. You can go on.
Okay. Go ahead, Mary.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tim SCHOTT, and as Noelle stated, I am the Executive Director in Leadership and Learning focused my energy on pre-K and elementary schools. And I'm going to talk about the 80%. So we've talked a lot about, Shashank and Noelle talked a lot about the 20% and some of those restrictions that we're still bumping up against. But I'm going to speak a little bit more about investments from the 80%. These top three, the elementary virtual, the middle school virtual, and the Canvas learning management system and the coordinator for that, all three of those are grouped together in our support for virtual learning. As Shashank mentioned, we had already planned for middle school virtual school within our own model, and we ended up offering Edgenuity as a vendor to our elementary school students. That resulted in about 500 students participating in that first semester. And then that Canvas learning management system coordinates all of our high school and middle school coursework and the teachers that drive our own virtual middle and high school programs. And so we invested in a coordinator to ensure that that all ran smoothly and folks were supported. So those top three are sort of grouped together in that category of supporting virtual instruction. And there are costs this current year, and there are costs moving forward that will continue to come out of that 80%. Then the next four are sort of a group two, and that is a group of strategies that we've employed to try to keep, retain high quality staff amidst widespread staff shortages nationally, internationally. And so I'm going to talk about a few of these a little bit more specifically than Shashank did. So the first one, planning period for subbing. We have in our schools widespread teachers and other staff substituting for each other essentially during the day. And so that creates quite a hardship. Our staff have been just incredibly flexible in this regard, and the level of cross-training that's happening, not because we want it, but because of the necessity, and people subbing for each other is just amazing. And so that planning period for subbing was an attempt to try to recognize that being well planned for your class is actually very, very important. And in some cases, we were creating conditions where people couldn't do their planning during the regular work hours, and they had to do it outside of their work hours. So we created an ability to compensate folks for when they're subbing for each other in certain circumstances. So that's the top one. Then substitute incentives is specific to trying to increase the number of substitutes that we have, both by creating a higher paid structure where substitutes could be assigned to a building full time. That also would increase not only the daily work and the I know where I'm going to work every day aspect, but also develop relationships with students and staff in a particular building. And so there's a plan that has increased assigned substitutes using ESSER dollars. And then there's also incentive structure for our retirees, our DMPS retirees, to try to lure our talented retirees back for us for any period of time, because we know that they're fantastic and they know our system well. Then the one up from the bottom is hiring and referral bonuses, and those are specific to several hard to fill positions, and hard to fill positions are not going to surprise you. They're everything from bus drivers to food service workers to teachers in certain roles. And so there's hiring bonuses for folks to come on with DMPS, and then there's referral bonuses for staff actually who encourage and recruit successfully folks to join the DMPS team, and those structures have been set up and paid for out of this 80% as well. And then the very last one on the bottom is the pool hire. So Shashank sort of mentioned this. We're trying to get ahead of hiring by literally hiring staff, winter graduate staff, December graduate staff, and get them started right away in buildings as opposed to waiting till the end of the year. And the budget includes up to 65 of those new hires. Shashank sort of mentioned this, and I'll just double down on it. We haven't been able to hire 65 teachers for that role, even though we have the money budgeted for it. I know our talent and personnel team is working feverishly to get that done, but staff shortage in general it's just creating the reality where we don't have 65 yet, but we're budgeted to try to get ahead with high quality staff in that way. So those are the teaching and learning aspects. Noelle, how about we go through the aspirational pieces real quickly and then we take questions? Is that okay? Libretta, I think your hand is up maybe. Is that all right? Okay. Bobretta's shaking her head. You're very, very little on my screen, Bobretta, so I think I can see you shaking your head. Let's go ahead then and move on to the next slide, please. And this won't be long, and then we can take questions, okay?
So some of these ideas, they don't technically qualify for ESSER yet, but we want them on here because we actually see these as the other things we covered feel like survival, and these things feel like improvement. So when we think about actual learning loss and trying to fill gaps that existed even before the pandemic and were just widened by the pandemic, these are what we think are higher leverage actions, but we can't say at this point in time that they're paid for by ESSER. We outlined, and this was a major feedback point from our community as well, is we all know the importance of preschool. The data is very clear that one of the best investments we can make is in a high quality preschool program. We want to increase enrollment and do so with a widespread campaign that's funded. That has not yet been approved, but we're not giving up that should be an effort. College and community partnerships for enrichment. So we know that we can do more to invest in utilizing our college programs, our community programs, to provide those aligned opportunities, and that may come with funding. And so how do we, knowing that we can't do it all, especially with a staffing shortage, and we need to fund as partners so our kids have as many opportunities as possible beyond the school day. Another action that we had outlined was wanting to invest financial resources into some existing partnerships specific to our ELL families, and knowing that we have a large influx of refugees, and can we actually funnel some of our resources to help support families as they're settling and integrating into our schools. Those aren't new things. It's just ramping up what's already in place and what has a proven track record of success. We also know that career and technical education is a major part of the high school experience, and we have a really clear vision to expand that to middle school and create a pipeline to career education in an effort to get kids on a really clear path and money in their pockets right away. So we have a vision for that. Again, it's not likely to qualify for ESSER funding, but we'd like to try. We have K-12 math and literacy intervention programs on the docket. We know that intervention is a large part. It's not to be prioritized over quality core instruction, high quality core instruction, but we know that those gaps still exist and we need to have plans to remedy that. So we're looking at investing or reinvesting in some of those research-based intervention programs for kids. We have curriculum materials that have already been adopted for math and literacy and pre-K on the way. And that's really just updating materials through an adoption cycle and recognizing that we have newer, higher quality materials available to us, and we want to get those in our teachers' hands and fund those with these dollars if possible. We've ramped up our efforts as it relates to support for middle schools. Our transition years are particularly hard, and the data is clear for that. And so we've added a middle school literacy coordinator that's currently vacant, but we'd like to budget for that. And then, of course, another large ticket item that came out of our feedback sessions was more investment in pipeline, leadership development, teacher development. recruitment, all of those things. But as you know, that costs money. So knowing that some of our best talent is already within our doors at Des Moines schools, we just need to create clearer pathways for people to seek those leadership opportunities and to find ways to get promoted. And that's not necessarily clear in all aspects of the organization. Okay, I think that covers our aspirational investments. Ms. Bruton, you have your hand up. Oh, I think you're on mute, Ms. Bruton.
Better? Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me and allowing me to have this time to speak. And of course, you know what I'm going to talk about. The district has people that are already committed to the district, and they're committed to our community and to our state because they live here and they have children going to school here. Some of them are not finished with their college education, and I think some of these dollars should be spent to set up a program, and within a year or two, they could be eligible teachers that reflect the diverse population of Des Moines. People think that there's not a diversity here in Des Moines, but there is, and it needs to happen from the superintendent's cabinet down to the building level. Because you can hire all these different coordinators, but if the administrative staff do not reflect the children, then what's happening is then the children get blamed because they don't know how to behave. Well, work on the leadership, I think. And so I believe there's probably teachers and counselors that might want to be an administrator, but maybe they need a year or two of help to get through that and to get those certifications. So I think that is truly important, especially at the middle school level, because I don't want to see any more of kids getting their heads beat on concrete. That is so unsafe. Okay, now here's a new one that I didn't bring to you the last time, and that'll be the last. This is the last thing I say. I see where 25, 28 people have been hired to be school coordinators or something like that. And I want to know, are they going to ride the bus to and from school? The children need, and so do the bus drivers, and even the city buses, they get kind of wild on there too, need help. And so if we have these coordinators, because my mom was one. My mom was a building associate, and so were a lot of her friends. And they rode the bus to school with the kids. They got picked up at King and they went over to Moore, or vice versa. They picked up at Moore and they went back to King. They calmed those buses. As a matter of fact, my mom was always requested, can she be on my bus? Can she be on my bus? But they're very helpful. And I worry about that trip to school and then all of the chatter that goes on with that. And I would rather see a school coordinator person on the bus with the kids than maybe having a cup of coffee waiting for the kids to come. I share that. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And Shelley is going to talk a little bit more about our community schools workers, or community schools coordinators, but that's a great suggestion. So thank you for bringing that.
Thank you, Noelle. You're always great to work with. And you too.
I miss you. I miss our coffee dates.
I know. Yeah.
Someday we'll be back.
This summer.
That's right.
Spring.
That's right. All right. We have another hand up. I'm not sure whose hand that is. Miss Gold.
It's Amanda. And let's have this be the last question for this section, and then let's do a few more, and then we'll do questions at the very end. Okay, is that all right, Amanda? Can you be the last one for this section?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. Hi, I'm Amanda Gold. I am a parent with Des Moines Public School. My daughter attends. I'm also a 4th grade teacher. And I was looking at the funding and I had some questions, because what we know is that John Hattie's research in 2016 says the most important thing for student impact is that teachers have collective efficacy, which is for sure so low right now. And also, I know we'll talk about SEL. Des Moines Public Schools has adopted the CASEL framework. And I was just going to read a quote really quick. So the CASEL framework absolutely requires that teachers practice mental health, like good things for their mental health, and take care of themselves, because modeling is essential. And it says this would be the culture and policies practice for the CASEL SEL that we've adopted. Effective integration depends upon school climate where all adults feel respected, supported, and engaged. And I can tell you from the last email we received where we were told that teachers are the most important things to students, and we were going to be penalized if we chose to leave, which for us would definitely be mental health for most of the time, that teacher burnout, that it was meant to fill vacancies and do great things for students. But I'm just wondering, I don't see anything on that budget. I see aspirations. I don't see anything on that budget for teacher retention, but I did notice quite a bit of money for recruiting. That's great, but what are we doing for teacher retention so we can have the biggest impact on our students?
Noelle, do you want any response to the questions right now, or are you needing to get to the next agenda?
No, I mean, we can go ahead and address this one, and then we'll move on, Susie. I know Josh kind of posted, well, he didn't kind of, he did. He posted a question that relates to this in the chat. I don't know if you had the chance to see that.
No, I did not. Yeah, so right now we have, I think, to go back to what also what Bobretta had mentioned earlier, we have some programs that are already in place in the district around different ways that we are working to help encourage staff to go on to pursue education if they want, or to support them in the field. So, like, for example, you know, we have a mentoring and induction program so that when we are hiring new teachers, that we are helping to support them throughout the entire year, where they receive ongoing support sessions, and they also receive a mentor. And so that is something that we support throughout the school year and even into the second year of someone's teaching career, because we know that that onboarding time is so important, and research shows us for retention efforts that that's really, really critical. So we've invested a lot of time in that already and have a pretty good structure established for that. We also have the blue contract, and we have the green contract, so that we can help support teachers who want to who want to further in their career with a master's program and around urban leadership. And so that is a program that we also provide ongoing support and mentorship and collaboration through Drake for any teachers that are interested in that. Our green contract is for those that are interested in going back and getting their special education endorsement. So that's another program that we have where we pay for that and we fund it to help support staff, but also another effort to retain. We also have what's called a 3D program in Given. It's very small. A lot of it comes down to funding, but we've been investing time in looking at how we expand that. So if you are a custodian in the district, if you're an office manager, if you're an associate and you want to go back and get your teaching degree, that we can help support that in a partnership that we have with Drake and with DMAC. And we're looking at expanding that to other leadership positions in the district beyond being a teacher, so that an employee, if they want to continue to move forward and work on being a supervisor, in a different area of the organization, whether it's in food service, whether it's in Metro, that we can help support that and grow individuals in getting their degree or whatever coursework needs to be taken for that. That's another thing that we put in place for retention efforts. We also dig in a lot to our data and look at specific departments, but also specific job groups that our department and talent and personnel can work directly with supervisors to strategize around what are some things that we need to do to better support employees. And then, of course, another thing we're working on is just stay interviews. We do exit surveys with staff, but that's once they have gone and they've left the district. But looking at capturing data as to why individuals are staying with the district, or maybe even contemplating leaving, and what can we be doing with that data to make some adjustments and changes. We also have our Dream to Teach program where we're working with students to grow them into being educators. So hopefully, we have a pathway of different courses that they can take. We provide them different field experiences because we're looking at investing in our own, growing our own teachers, our own employees, our own students to stay with the district and come back. And so a lot of that we do have in place, but it needs to continue to be built and more robust than what we currently have. But the reason why you may not see that on this list is because one of the areas where we were really lacking was in our ability to recruit and incentivize employees, because we didn't have the money for that. And now we have an opportunity to do a little bit more with that. But we continue to work on that and expand a lot of what we're currently doing and looking at doing it better to better support, and retain our employees.
This is right now, because I'm sure we'll have to do a little bit of research, but it sounds like the questions in the chat and what Josh posted is there might be some other districts who are actually incentivizing teachers to stay. And I'm assuming that there's a financial incentive, not just a, potluck. So that's a question maybe to explore. I don't know that we can answer that tonight unless you can.
Yeah, no, I would say probably what has emerged out of some of the work that we've been doing to incentivize or the referral bonuses or feedback from employees about what can we do to incentivize current employees in the district. And so that's something that we're looking at as well. I don't have an answer to that, but I will say that that's been feedback that we've received and that we've heard and that we are looking into.
Okay, Mary, you can keep going. I think that wraps up our segment.
Okay, so then that brings us to social emotional learning, mental health supports. And you may remember when we got together in, I think it was July, that we wanted to be very clear about the area of social emotional learning and mental health supports, that what we're talking about and what we used our ESSER funds to do within the district was not our entire plan. So just to be clear, through our integrated services plan, we have added social workers, we've added counselors, and we're super happy about that. And so what we really looked at in this area was how could we further our plan? And Mary had mentioned this earlier, and Mary, I'm going to have you go ahead and go to the next slide. Mary mentioned that the plan that we have for the district and the levers that you see there, the 7 levers, you'll see social emotional learning there. And we know one of the things about social emotional learning is that it's pervasive across all levers, and that's important, that that's recognized and honored. And we know that the work that's done at the foundational level will be the things that help support all of the work at the levers above that. So just to be clear that what we're going to talk about tonight is, yes, related to social emotional learning, engagement and community building, safety and health and well-being, but it's not our entire plan. What we're going to talk about tonight is just how we used our ESSER dollars, and we're super excited to talk about that because we've made some really great progress. Mary, I'm going to have you go to the next slide if you would, please. So we have, like I said, used the dollars to add for additional supports. Most of the counselors that we added were from other funds. Dropout prevention was one of them, but we did add a counselor for virtual campus that was related to ESSER. We also added a lot of hours for nurses, and we made it so that I think almost every building has a full-time nurse now, and they were allowed to have some extra hours because we know with COVID, there were lots of demands placed on our nurses, not only for service, but also for a lot of reporting and keeping track of things as they were coming up. So that was important that we were able to do that. But what we'll talk about tonight is the bulk of the ESSER dollars within our little corner of the world. And I should have told you, I'm Shelley Bosovich. I'm Executive Director of Student and Family Services. And so when I say our little corner of the world, it's Student and Family Services, in which community school coordinators are part of our department. So community school coordinators were one of our asks, and we came to that decision by having lots of meetings with community. Board went out and met with many community members. We had meetings with focus groups with students, and we had focus groups with elementary, middle, and high school principals. And so what we were really landing on is making sure that we had a community school coordinator in every building. And I'm super happy to say that we were able to hire all of those positions, and they are being onboarded right now. I'm going to, I want to say one more thing. There were so many things that were said earlier that I was so excited that were great segues. Someone, I think, Ms. Bruton, it may have been you, talking about making sure that we're bringing people in from our community. And I'm very happy to say, I think it's 50% of the new hires that we have in the community school coordinator group who are current Des Moines Public School parents. So that is awesome. We're so thankful that people are so interested in wanting to be a part of this work. So Allison Vukovic is our Director of Community Schools, and Vanessa Howell is one of our coordinators. And I'm going to turn it over to Allison. I know she's super excited because, like I said, they've just been onboarding the community school coordinators this week.
All right, good evening. I'm still at our magical workspace right now because we've been putting in a lot of hours to have our coordinators have a great onboarding experience. So Mary, if you could go forward one, that'd be awesome. Thank you. So community schools, if you don't know what it is a federally approved approach to improving student outcomes. So it is research-based. And really what it is in a nutshell, and I'll let you guys read that, but what it is, it's about creating a hub of the community. So we know that each individual school community has its own unique needs. So that community school coordinator is really tasked with bringing in the appropriate supports. It may be mental health supports, it may be out of school time enrichment, it may be increasing family engagement, it may be really increasing morale in the school, because right now we know it's really tough. It's really having that person who gets to work within all of those areas and really be that, what we're kind of rah-rahing them right now is focusing on that why. And I know right now it is so hard out there, but if you could come into this room when all of these wonderful people are here, there's such an energy on being able to do this work and really partner with our community. Most of the people we've recruited into these roles have been working in the community. Their parents, their community members, they've been working in nonprofit, and they are so excited to get going on this work. And it is an infectious energy, and we can't wait they'll be in schools next week. We can't wait to release them into schools to really start to make some of that magic happen. Mary, if you could go. Thank you. So the pillars of community schools, integrated student supports, that's really looking at what do individual students need and how are they working and building a system to make sure those individual needs of students are being met. Expanded learning time and opportunity, we want to make sure that all of our students have the access and equity to be involved in out of school time programming. That may be arts, it may be sports. We had an awesome conversation today. We have them working in feeder patterns. So how are they building systems from day one when kids walk into kindergarten that they can see themselves as a Lincoln rail splitter, as a kindergartner at Jefferson? And how are we building that pride all the way through our system? And it was really fun to listen to them talk about that today. Family and community engagement. We know that parents and families are our most important part of this equation, and that community school coordinator is really going to look at how they can make that connection to families even stronger. And then collaborative leadership and practice. We cannot do this alone. We have to have our community and our parents all sitting around the table so we can really work through a lot of the issues that we're facing together. And Vanessa, you can chime in anytime if you have anything to add. All right, Mary, I'm ready for you. All right. So as you've seen kind of throughout, the connection to the levers. So we have our community school pillars, but those pillars are all aligned to the levers. So those community school coordinators are really making those levers come to life in buildings. So health and well-being, we know that our community school coordinators are going to build those systems within our buildings with mental health supports, school-based food pantries, clothing closets, you name it. We need to make sure that our families have access to what they need so students can be in the buildings learning. And then engagement and community building, we want to make sure that all of our families have a voice. And that community school coordinator is going to be tasked with making sure that they are opening the door for our families and that they have the ability to get into the schools, maybe once we're past COVID, and be a part of their students' education. And we also want our students involved in out-of-school time programming, which is the engagement and community building lever. All right, so all of our coordinators started last Thursday, and we have been engaging in 7 days of training. We are looking at the following areas where they are getting a whole lot of training on our MTSS plan and levers, our DMPS partnership process, which Vanessa has been training them in, integrated services, out-of-school time programming, family and community engagement, student transitions. We know this is really important. Our kids transitioning from 5th to 6th, our kids transitioning from 8th to 9th, and that connection between community school coordinators, which is why we put them in feeder patterns, is so important for our students. And then access and equity for all of our students. It is the foundation of what we are building with community schools, just to really make sure that our students have what they need and have access to be ready to learn each day.
Now, just quick, just on this slide, just being a part of this training, I really do wish each and every one of you could be in the room just to feel their energy. They're excited about learning. Their previous DMPS graduates, there's one on my team that's she went to Brubaker, and so she gets to serve as a community school coordinator now, full circle back at Brubaker. This foundational training that we're providing is really going to make them very equipped to serve their building and their individual community. And certainly we can't do it all by ourselves, but this is a great step in the right direction. So we will be reaching out to you, the community, as well, to assist us as we move this work forward.
Did they send out an agenda at the start? I didn't see it.
Thanks, Noelle. I see that you put that in the chat. The great thing about our community school team, we take a ton of pride in recruiting from our community with very skilled professionals that do represent our students and families. And when you are sitting at the tables with the community school coordinators, they live in our community, their kids go to Des Moines Public Schools, and they reflect our student body. And that is something that brings us a lot of pride. I see a hand up, but I'm not sure who it is.
It's Miss Bruce.
Hi, Miss Bruce.
Hi, I am very interested in this program, and they're being paid out of fees that are coming from the third ESSR allotment. Is that correct?
The new ones are.
Right.
Yep.
So what if this fee is good from 2022 to 2024? Where will you find the funding to pay them after the fees have been allocated through 2024?
That's a great question. Mary, can you go to the next slide? Oh, that's small. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that was that small. So our plan is, so community schools, we've grown community schools over the years before ESSER, and a lot of it is because we're creative. So we use 21st century dollars. We have a current federal community school grant, and we get a lot of support from United Way. Our plan is to continue to do that, but it's also to look at what do we currently have in our system, and really evaluate current programs to make sure that we're investing in the right program. So I know it's a year and a half, but it's a year and a half to make sure that these people are pillars of the community. We don't plan on them going anywhere.
I agree with you. They are very much needed in the community, and especially working with young people in the elementary school setting, preparing them for middle school. So I was hoping that you definitely had a handle on how they're going to be able to have their salary continue after 2024. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. We've been planning since before day one on how we are going to sustain this. Is there another hand?
Looks like Brandon Oliver. Mr. Oliver, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm wondering how are we, because I saw Noelle's comment that it's a diverse group who reflects the students we serve. How are we involving these new employees in the pipeline and making sure that they can also move to different positions with, I don't know, maybe a broader power in the district?
I love that question. We actually had Peter here today, and he made a lot of really great connections with the community school coordinators. Now, I don't want him to steal all of them right away, but one of the things that we've said is, like, now you're in our system, it's our job to grow you. Now, whether we have people who want to continue to serve in this role for a long period of time, or if it's somebody who has aspirations to be a principal, what we're really, I think, trying to build is that really strong partnership with the talent team to make sure that all of our community school coordinators have access to, whether it's a mentor or somebody within our organization that can really coach them on, if that is where I want to go, what steps do I have to take to get there? And we're going to continue to work really closely with that talent team and with Peter and his team to make sure our community school coordinators have access to that. That's a great question. Ms. Barbretta?
Yeah, I had another question, and congratulations, Vanessa. I know you've been working on that really hard, and Allison, you too. So I have a lot of respect for the coordinators, because I remember the day when I was one at King Elementary School. And so from there, I actually became a principal over time. So I want to make sure that there is a pathway for anybody that's in the system and that they can grow. My question is, 28 of them could actually have an impact on safety and also some of the problems that you're having with trying to find bus drivers. Because some people will say to me, well, I would drive the bus, but I am so afraid what's happening behind me. They took all of the associates off of the bus except for special ed. I don't know that for a fact, but I know that that's what people say. And I think really take a look at those job descriptions and get them on the buses before and after school. We're probably only talking about an hour and a half, but I think it's an hour and a half that can provide safety and plus a calmer ride to and from school. And then my other question is, okay, so you're right about the coordinators representing the population and all of that. We need to see more principals, and we need to see more people at the cabinet working with the superintendent so he's not blindsided by a lot of this stuff that's going on. You know, because in previous years, Wes Chapman and Dr. Bowman both were on the cabinet, and they could kind of smooth out a bunch of stuff before it actually even happened. So that cabinet needs to represent, and there needs to be more principals, especially when you're talking about Black boys. You know, you got this thing about Black boys, but you don't have enough Black men in leadership roles that can help the staff. So there you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so we're going to continue to monitor based on the pillars of community schools that it's aligned to our board monitoring levers. And then we're going to continue to, seek funding and make sure that we believe that the community school coordinators are really foundational to what we need to do for students and families in our school. And we're excited about this work. So I think that is our last slide. So if there's no other questions, I will turn it to the next person.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Dave Berger. I'm the district's Executive Director of Operations, and wanted to go through some of those things that maybe are a little bit less exciting than what we've talked about already. We're going to talk a little bit more about widgets and the things that we're doing, hopefully kind of behind the scenes, to make sure that we're utilizing our ESSER dollars to the best extent possible to help provide the best environments that we can for what it is that we do here at Des Moines Schools. So, Mary, if you could go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Mine's going to be a little bit more cut and dried, and I'll kind of try to provide a little bit of context here, but just a little bit more about what we're actually doing with the dollars from a facilities and an operations standpoint. So, when we got together back July, August, and spoke about some of the planned items or the planned initiatives that we were going to be utilizing the ESSER dollars for here in operations, this is essentially a list of those items that we identified at that time, as well as a little bit of a breakout as far as where we have been able to allocate dollars, where we have actually been able to utilize some of those dollars. And then I'll talk a little bit about what our intents are going to be moving forward, certainly as we get into the latter parts of the program and it gets towards its sunset. So we do have a couple of items that we've been able to knock off pretty quickly. Our custodial department had identified some additional cleaning equipment for providing disinfecting, things like that throughout some of our buildings. We've gone ahead and secured those, and those are in use and are successful now. We're currently in the process of rolling out an initiative to install expanded rag and laundry systems in our buildings. So that's essentially washers and dryers for our custodial staff so that they have the ability to, one, have access to a larger range of cleaning supplies, as well as it has some long-term efficiency purposes for us as well from a cost-effective standpoint. On-site cleaning, that's actually supposed to be product, not project generation. That was something that we had identified as an initiative that we wanted to evaluate further. We're going to continue to do that. At this point, we feel that there are some other areas where it really makes more sense for us to spend these dollars. But as we get towards the end of the program and we start ticking off some other items, we'll certainly be looking at whether or not that's something that we're going to bring back into the fold. Monitoring and testing of cleaning processes. That was something that we had brought up. Initially, we had discussed actually bringing a staff member on that would be funded, their salary would be funded with ESSER through the end of the period, and then we would roll them into our regular FTE count. That their primary focus would be to really focus on active cleaning processes, utilize some new hardware that we have on the way. That's what the dollars that are allocated are for, and to really sort of get into the nuts and bolts of sort of the science of cleaning, so to speak. We have actually elected not to fund that position with ESSER, and instead we're utilizing some of our existing FTE room that we have, so that we can go ahead and cover that position with our existing staffing count. So that's something that's coming. We have folks actively working on writing job descriptions and in identifying the proper equipment for that right now. So we're hoping to have that in place here shortly. Expanded building control systems. Essentially what that is, all of our buildings are wired together, and at any given time, those with access can really sort of see what's going on in any of our buildings from a temperature standpoint, what ventilation units are running, what some of our indoor air quality parameters in buildings are looking like, things like that. We've actually gone ahead and identified, sort of from a business sense, that it's advantageous for us to go ahead and purchase some of the controls equipment separate of some of our larger projects. Largely, it gives us an opportunity to try and beat the curve a little bit. There are a lot of folks that are looking for these materials right now, and so it gives us an opportunity to put some things on the shelves, and we can go out and get those deployed to a larger number of buildings more quickly. So we do have some dollars allocated for that. We do have a large order in right now, starting to see some pieces come in, and we'll start getting those deployed here shortly. Shashank mentioned earlier that one of the things that we had identified was the installation of water bottle filling stations. Actually, the intention right now, and we do have a contractor that's actually started to complete this work. We will be replacing all of the existing drinking fountains in our buildings with bottle filler stations. It may not be a one-for-one replacement in every facility, because we do have some buildings that have probably more drinking fountains than what we really need or can maintain. But we're going back with bottle filling stations in all the buildings. We have over 600 bottle station fillers that will go in. And like I say, we've started installation on those, and as materials become available, we are just going to continue to roll through, and our intention is that by sometime in the 2023 fiscal year, probably sometime next summer, we will have that complete, but we're actively working through that as quickly as we can. The ongoing repair and assessment, that's really what that was, is we wanted to make sure that we had some dollars earmarked for our ongoing facilities work, and had some dollars available to help support our facilities group as they sort of go about their day-to-day operations. So what we've done is we've gone ahead and earmarked some dollars specifically for things like, we'll be using some of this for filter changing moving forward. It allows us to have the resources available to our facilities group. And when I say our facilities group, those are the folks that are responsible for the day-to-day operations and maintenance of our facilities. So those are our plumbers, our electricians, our carpenters, things like that. But we do have folks that they run our work tickets. They're the ones who respond to the needs of as they come in from principals and building staff. This gives them a little bit of an opportunity to be able to bring in outside experts when we have things like that that need to be done to help address some ongoing needs on the day-to-day operation standpoint. And really the big push here, and Shashank noted that the operations element of our ESSER funding, our ESSER3 funding, is the second largest the second largest sort of bucket that the ESSER funds are going to be used for, and that's really shown here in this line item where we have it identified as expanded ventilation project. The reference to planned, the district does operate on a 5-year capital improvement program. And right now we are in year 2 of our current 5-year program. So FY21 was actually year 1 of the current capital improvement program, and primarily that's funded, that program is funded with SAVE, or statewide penny dollars, as some people refer to it. This 5-year cycle was actually already intended to be quite heavily loaded with mechanical projects. We were going to be addressing a lot of buildings that were renovated starting back in the early 2000s, and now we're at a point where just due to wear and tear and changes in equipment, we were in a position that we were going to be upgrading mechanical and ventilating systems in buildings as it was. So while COVID was and is not a good thing for all of us, the one thing that this injection of ESSER dollars has done is that it has actually allowed us to expand the scope of the work that we're able to do on those planned projects. So in FY21, we were actually able to go back in arrears, and we've got $12.4 million that were allocated to projects that were completed last year. The reason it's sort of split out on the spent between 21 and 22 is just the way our fiscal years break out. But so far, for projects from last year, we're somewhere in the neighborhood of about $9 million that we've spent. We do have some more things that are ongoing. Projects for this year, we have a number of projects that are scheduled in a number of facilities that right now we have about $11.3 million allocated to those projects. FY23, right now we're working with the dollars that we have. We have a limited number of dollars allocated for FY23, but we're hoping that as we move forward, we'll be able to roll some more dollars into that area. One of the reasons why we really jumped hard on trying to address taking advantage of the availability of these funds for our projects in 21 and 22 is, like I say, they allowed us to expand the scope of our projects. The other thing is we knew that every school district in the United States has, in one way or another, now access to ESSER funds. Des Moines Schools is not the only school district that is interested in doing mechanical improvements in their facilities. So one of the things we tried to do, I think everybody that has been to the store knows that prices are going up. And so between price increases and the fact that we knew that we were going to be looking sort of down the barrel of increased challenges with getting our hands on equipment, we decided to go ahead and invest pretty heavily on our first couple of years so that we can make sure that, one, we were sort of getting the best bang for our dollar, knowing that the money is getting more expensive, and we wanted to take advantage of that as quickly as possible. We also wanted to make sure that we didn't end up on the backside of supply chain. So that's why we're really loading up on the front couple of years there. We're looking for creative ways, though, that we can of course stretch those dollars, and for ways that we can go ahead and utilize some more of those dollars moving forward into FY23 and FY24. FY24, Shashank noted that this program sunsets in June of 24. The fact that we need to have everything signed, sealed, deliver in the construction cycle, we wanted to make sure that we get everything done in time. We don't want to be on the wrong side of it and not have all the paperwork in time to be able to realize the reimbursements. So anyway, the other thing I'll say with the ventilation projects is the introduction of the ESSER dollars have also allowed us to offset some of our SAVE expenditures, so our statewide penny expenditures. Between 21 and 22, somewhere in the neighborhood of about $9 to $10 million of projects that were intended to be funded by SAVE dollars have actually been offset and funded through ESSER dollars. So those are dollars that we're going to be able to utilize moving forward elsewhere in our 5-year plan to be able to make facility improvements. Last thing there, the increased number of ventilation projects, just that. We've been able to increase the number of projects that we had planned above and beyond our 5 years. So I'm looking at the clock and I'm going to talk a little faster here. Mary, could I have the next slide, please? This is just a real quick, oops, looks like we lost it.
Sorry, don't know what happened.
It's okay.
Get it back up. I tried to close out the little pop-up and that was not a good idea. There we go.
So as far as monitoring expenditure impacts from an operations standpoint, again, not quite as maybe not quite as exciting as the way that some of the other departments in the district monitor the way that they're utilizing ESSER dollars and the impacts on our kids. But just very briefly, we had identified several different things that we were going to make sure that we were looking at during implementation, and as far as what the impacts are. As far as implementation, we do meet as an operations group on a regular basis and coordinate, what we believe to be next best steps based off of the things that we're seeing and the insight that we get from our outside consultants and our inside subject area experts. As far as impact monitoring, I noted a couple of these, the quantitative assessment of cleaning practices. We've got some hardware that's coming in, and we'll have some folks that can deal with that directly to make sure that we're staying sort of ahead of the curve when it comes to best practice on cleaning. Indoor air quality parameters, obviously so much has been discussed about ventilation and indoor air quality. The ESSER dollars for us, one of the things that we're looking at is being able to expand those building controls and those mechanical systems. So what we're looking at is the number of parameters that we can evaluate at any given building, the suite of parameters. So maybe a building that historically we've only been able to really look at things like temperature and humidity. We'll be expanding in some cases so that we have a better idea of carbon dioxide. We have better control or better understanding of various parameters like that we're looking at. So that's a parameter in a way that we're quantifying some of those things. The fiscal expenditures, we're making sure that we're not spending more than we have. So we're actively working with our business and finance group to make sure that we're on track and certainly trying to be as frugal and as good stewards as we can with what we have available. And as far as quantitative evaluation of attendance rates and COVID-19 activities, those were items we identified earlier. And really what that's doing is we're just staying in contact with our health services department, trying to make sure that we're up to date and up to speed with where we're at with conditions within the buildings, and if there's anything that we can do that will help, maybe change the things that we're seeing in some of those situations, we're certainly going to do that. So if I could have the next one, Mary, I think this is the last little slide for us. So implementation and next steps. This is really just a summary of those items that I've already gone through, sort of the status. Again, right now we feel that we're on track with the items that we had identified. And of course, there are some things that we're doing outside of the scope of what we had originally looked at. A couple of these, the cleaning project, or boy, I type project everywhere, cleaning product generation. We're classifying that as other because we're kind of waiting for a little bit of time to go before we decide what that will look like. Another one that we had identified was additional professional services. And what that was intended to include was additional engineering services to kind of help us get over the fact that with the amount of work that needs to be done and is being done, we only have a limited number of in-house resources, and it's utilizing some of those professional partners that we have to make sure that we're able to really oversee our projects on a day-to-day basis and make sure that we're getting the most that we're investing. We've actually gone ahead and separated that out, consolidated that in with our ventilating projects. We originally had a separate line item for it, but at this point we've lumped it in and we're including that in the budgets that we have for our ventilating project. So we're not overlooking it. We're just handling it in a little bit different way. So let's see here. I know we've got a couple of questions coming in, and tell you what, I don't want to not answer anything, but Mary, I guess the question is, do you want me to answer questions, or do you want me to turn it over to technology so that they can So Lisa can go through her slides.
Yeah, maybe just take a couple minutes to answer questions since
Absolutely.
timely and everyone else got things. And then I think Lisa and I can get through technology in 10 minutes. So we'll just hopefully we'll apologize for going slightly over tonight.
Let's see here. A couple of questions. I see that there was one specifically as it relates to filtration units in classrooms. That was something that we put a lot of thought into as far as the best way to address that. One of the challenges we have as an organization is with 6 million square feet and close to 3,000 classrooms. Logistically, there were some challenges that we had in terms of being able to implement that. So we have worked with the buildings. We know that we have some buildings that have had some parent groups that have been interested in assisting with some of those local space type things.
I just want to break in. I just want to break in for a moment. That was my question.
Okay.
The issue with that is that you have some parent teacher organizations that are well funded. So this becomes an equity issue where some schools have these and others don't. We could do an inexpensive option like a Corsi Rosenthal box, and we can mobilize our community to build those so that it's not an extreme cost. But if we're just allowing, some schools that are well funded to have these filtration systems, that's not an equitable solution. And I am all for all these wonderful projects that you're talking about long term, but we are in the middle of another peak right now, and ventilation is a very important way to mitigate that. So I would like to advocate for using individual filtration units, at least until these longer term projects come on, and using our people power and our COVID funds to help mitigate COVID that we're experiencing right now. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. No, and I don't disagree, and I fully understand where you're coming from. Like I say, one of the things we tried to do is to we've tried to cover as many bases as we possibly can with the dollars we have available. And I agree, there are certainly some options that are out there, and I think that's one of those things where by all means, it's probably a discussion that we could have outside of this forum, just simply due to the length that we could get into. But no, we're trying to make sure that we're addressing everything we possibly can. It's a tough ask, and I'm not going to say that that it's not. So fully understand that, and yes, it is one of those things that's been a challenge for us to make sure that we're we are trying to address things equitably. So trying to see if there's anything else here. See, there's a question about water bottles for students with the new filling stations. I think that's one of those things that we haven't actively discussed it so much as part of this project, but I think that's something that we'll probably be taking up at the building level as we get closer to having those units push out, so that we can make sure that we do have a way to go ahead and put bottles in kids' hands. So. Let's see here.
I think Miss Cason, I think her hand is up.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Oops. I think you're muted.
Oh.
Is that better?
There we go.
Okay. I noticed that you're watching your funds closely, and you do in fact intend to use all of the ESSER funds. In fact, you have, and I commend you on that. One of the areas that I'm confused about is staffing. You're saying you're reviewing job descriptions, but my concern is that as we lose it, I don't know if the process of the new programs or whatever you're implementing will the staff be trained to perform those tasks? And how do you have a way that, are they going to be tier rated, or just how is that department? Is there going to be changes to the department so that people can be see that they have opportunities?
So the position that I referenced is a position that would be largely focused on that measurement of cleaning standards. It would be a person that would be able to kind of help identify best practice. They'd be able to help use the equipment that we're purchasing to make sure that what we're doing is the best we possibly can. In terms of training and things like that, the reason I mentioned the job description is this is a new position for us, and we want to make sure that when we go out and we look for someone, that we're identifying the skill set that we really need to cover. So that's the reason for the note about the job description. And I think what we really sort of see on this is that certainly this will be a position that's going to be open to all candidates. It'll be open to internal candidates and external candidates. Our current custodial staff, they know our buildings better than anybody else. So, it would stand to reason, then it wouldn't be a surprise if that person came from our current custodial ranks. But one of the things I think that we've looked at here is, while this person is going to be responsible for helping to identify best practice and to verify the quality of the work that's being done, we also see it as sort of a coaching role to, as they go through buildings, be able to work with building custodial staff to help make sure that they're being educated on best practice. And like you say, have an opportunity for people to be able to see potential other opportunities moving forward. So we don't see this as sort of a static one-off thing where somebody's just going to come in and look at a screen on a machine. The intent is that they're going to be out, they're going to be engaging, and it's going to be it's an opportunity for betterment across the board.
Okay. I just think that, if they if opportunity avails itself, that there's is coaching involved and maybe education also.
Absolutely, and that's going to be a crucial part of this, and that's something that we're really trying to work on as a department. Quite honestly, outside of the COVID issue, is making sure that people are provided with the opportunities and the skills that they need to either move laterally or vertically, either within the organization or elsewhere as it's best for them.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. I'm having trouble seeing things here. Anybody else that I'm missing, Mary, or do you want me to go ahead and say my goodbyes?
Yeah, this is Jessie Richardson-Jones. Hi, I had a question about, all of these do seem to be long-term projects, and I'm wondering what specifically the district is doing to address Omicron and the threat that it poses to, honestly, keeping classrooms open safely. I mean, there are so many school districts right now where all of their teachers and subs are sick, and so they can't they can't keep classrooms open for that reason. There are things that the district could be doing in terms of, as Vanessa said, providing filtration in classrooms, providing high quality masks to teachers and students. And it seems like that should be what ESSER funds are used for. They're supposed to be keeping classrooms open safely during the pandemic, and we're really addressing a unique threat right now. I guess I'm just asking, like, what's being done to address, the unique threat that we have in front of us right now with Omicron?
Sure. Well, we're continuing to overventilate where we can. It's tough this time of year with existing building systems, and I fully understand the comment about individual ventilation units. this time of year, it is a little bit tough, and just purely from an operational standpoint, with the fact that we're colder outside now, so bringing in 100% outdoor air is not always the best thing, because our systems we just can't keep up. Our systems aren't designed to heat the cold air that we have in large quantities. But we're continuing to increase the ventilation in classrooms, or leave the ventilation rates higher. We're still continuing to run ventilation, longer run times before and after days. Certainly still encouraging a lot of the same practices that we have been implementing for a while, or encouraging for a while. If it's a condition where we can operate windows, let's go ahead and just increase ventilation that way. The references to additional or higher filtration rate masks and things like that, I can't speak to that one personally, just because I don't know as far as availability of that. Certainly what I understand is that, yes, that's a highly recommended step right now. That would be something that I think I would probably have to turn over to somebody else, because I can't speak to that, or I'd certainly be happy to look into that and get back to you.
Yeah, I'm happy to follow up on these. Thank you.
Okay.
And certainly email you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we're in the home stretch. We have Mary Grinstead here with Lisa Irie doing technology, and we'll power through this and then get to the most important questions, and promise to go real fast because we are already over time. So I'm gonna flip the slide and turn it over to Lisa.
Thanks, Mary. Hey, everyone. I'm Lisa Irie. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I'm the Interim Director for Technology Operations, tasked with providing student devices and connectivity for learning. So as you can see here, we reported in the summer on a few projects we were working on as far as obtaining devices for our students. That was a success. And now our next task at hand in the device realm is to obtain a classroom management software. And you can see the pricing breakdown for that. So this slide is really all about the budget and the pricing. And the next slide we'll be talking about kind of what these things mean for learning. We did see a little bit of damage to, we used ESSER dollars to cover damages to the devices that were returned during our remote learning year. So these were things like cracked screens or missing power adapters, or just the natural things that kind of happen when you have a device. And so we did use ESSER dollars to cover some of those costs for us. Additionally, we've expanded our help desk from a traditional staff only help desk to a student and family help desk line as well. So we've used ESSER dollars to fund the additional staff for that. From a connectivity standpoint, focusing on getting access to the internet, we spent about $150,000 to expand our Wi-Fi beyond the school building into the school parking lots. So that included extra devices that we had to mount to the light poles and things of that nature, and additional licensing for those devices to be able to power the Wi-Fi beyond the building. We have a contract with Mediacom to provide home family internet through the end of fiscal year 22. And we have those family hotspots as well that we used ESSER funding for. And those hotspots are actually going to be picked up by a different funding source that Shashank mentioned toward the beginning of this call, the Emergency Connectivity Fund, or ECF. That is part of the FCC, and it's a different funding source than ESSER, but still comes from federal dollars. And then we have a line item. I don't know, Mary, if you want to talk about that, but we can go into more depth. But the data management infrastructure project coming up.
Yeah, we have a project that's just getting off the ground. We have just have an RFP out. We're reviewing proposals to help us basically redo some foundational things with our data infrastructure to better meet the needs of the organization in an online world. And we'll get more into that slide.
Okay, so jumping ahead to the next slide, we can kind of take a look at how these different initiatives we're looking at. Again, we're tying all of this to that board lever of access. So through the device and through the connectivity for our students and families. The classroom management software that we will be implementing here within the next few weeks allows the teachers to control student devices at school or remotely. And that's more of a management tactic to blank their screen to get all their eyes on them in the classroom, or restrict different websites during structured activities and things of that nature. It also allows for early detection and response recommendations to triggering activities or concerning behaviors to help give us warning signs such as bullying or talk of weapons or violence, suicide ideation, or mental health concerns. So that classroom management app, by implementing that, will give us more control and supervision of their students on our devices. The student family help desk line, like I mentioned, the expenditure there is to help staff a help desk line for students and families to get technical support, either remote learning or if they just need help resetting a password. We do see about 1,000 calls a month on that, and the helpline is open and available from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. I'm sorry, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then our connectivity line down there, again, this is expanding the Wi-Fi, which we've already done to all school parking lots. It's providing 460 families with that MediaCom internet through the end of this year. And then we have 4,500 families using our hotspots for connectivity at home, and looking to expand that with the ECF funding at the end of this year. So we can go to the next slide.
Okay, and then here's more information about the data management infrastructure process or project. Really, that's bringing in really a consultant to help us kind of up our skill set at the data and technology sector, I should say, of our organization, to help our data systems talk to each other more effectively, efficiently. We have a lot of softwares that we have purchased over the years. There's probably some that are repetitive. There are some that we actually don't fully utilize because they don't quite meet our business process needs. So customizing those softwares that we have to meet our business process needs, or finding a more suitable replacement, helping us through that. So if we get, and this is it's really just foundational. It's not exciting work, but it's critical work to just making an organization be able to seamlessly push and pull data to reduce the manual workload for our staff. And with our staffing shortages, it's become more and more imperative. So being able to push our academic content through the district, coordinating workflows, and then getting that consistent, high integrity, timely data for decision making across the organization. We have some good data in some areas, and then some data, they really can't pull their data back out of their systems. Okay, so we jump to the next one.
Yeah, so this gives the implementation and next steps for a few of those projects that we're talking about funding out of ESSER. So like I said, the rollout of the classroom management software will be coming in the next few weeks. And the family home internet, we will be transitioning away from MediaCom to those increased hotspots out of that different funding source. That's also to give some mobility to our families as well. Whereas MediaCom comes into the house, you can take a hotspot with you on the go. We will continuously evaluate the utilization of the Family and Student Help Desk line. So far, we've found that it's been extremely beneficial and an important resource for our students and families, especially when they're doing the distance or the remote learning. And then, you know, the thing that Mary and I are talking about the data management infrastructure, continuing to pursue improving those measures and checking with the state of Iowa along the way to make sure that everything we're doing is within the guidelines and allowability for those funds. I told you it'd be fast.
So any questions? Or did everyone else worry you out?
We've got a few takers.
All right.
I think I saw Mr. Brandon's hand go up first.
Hi, yeah. I had a question back about the pipeline and hiring and those kind of practices. I'm wondering, how are we making sure we are providing training for future leaders, which it sounds like we're trying to do, but also learning from them so that we can transform our leadership to reflect the student population and grow our thinking. Because if we just train future leaders to do things the way we already do them, it's going to be hard for us to grow. So I just want to make sure that that's part of the process. Like, how are we learning from our school community coordinators and people we're looking at?
I love that question so much. So I would say that that really lives within our collaborative leadership and practice pillar, which is one of community schools, which it's not just the community school coordinators that our leaders should be learning from, it's also the community. It's the students, it's families, it's parents. It's really doing a lot more listening and recognizing that there are a lot of strengths that exist within our communities, and bringing those strengths into the school and really listening and learning from them. So are we there yet? No, but we're going to get there. So I think that that is one of the things that we'll strive to do within that pillar of community schools.
All right, Ms. Kaysen, I think you were next. She might be having trouble getting herself off mute, perhaps.
I'm sorry.
There you go.
All right, I'm sorry. And these might be questions that someone else knows, but just for my own self, I was just wondering, does everyone in the family who is going to school, especially in a certain grade, they each receive a computer, or is it so many per family, or how does that work? And I'm just wondering, how are evaluations you know, since you have the family involved, it'd be an opportune time where the parent and students can get together and have a conversation, you know, with the educators. So is that something that's being done now? And how often are the computers evaluated and cleaned and so forth for safety? Do they turn them in at when they graduate, or what? And if they're not going to summer school, do they turn them in and you evaluate at that time? Just how does that process work?
Yeah, thank you. We are officially a one-to-one district. We have enough devices to provide all students and staff with a device that can be assigned to them. It's theirs and theirs alone. That they're the only ones who log in and log out of that device. So it is dedicated. That way we eliminate the risk, you know, back when we thought COVID was transmissible by touch, we eliminate the risk of touching multiple devices. You know, and now from just an inventory management standpoint, it makes more sense to have a device assigned to each person. And that way we can track that device with that student throughout their career. We do refresh devices after 4 years. So none of our devices in our inventory are more than 4 years old. They're all have the latest operating system and are compatible with all modern browsers and applications. Students do turn in their device at the end of every school year. That allows us to take those older devices out of inventory and retire those and bring in the fresh new batch for the next school year. That is, of course, unless they are participating in summer school, in which case they do keep their device, and we work with those programs to ensure if they have an older device that we swap it out for the new one, and make sure that, again, we're constantly rotating that inventory on a 4-year basis. And I'm trying to think, did I answer all of your questions?
Yeah, I was just wondering, since you have the home and family arrangements, so is that easier on the teachers to perform evaluations for students, or do we not do that?
I'm not exactly sure. I don't know that I can speak to what teachers do for evaluations, but I will say that providing MediaCom internet and hotspot Wi-Fi, allowing those students who wouldn't otherwise be able to connect to the internet, it has allowed them, you know, access to their curriculum beyond the school walls, you know, from home. So I would imagine it's easier for the student and teacher to connect outside of school.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering how evaluations are being handled. If you had any special data for that. So, okay, thank you.
Yes, maybe there's someone on this call who can answer that question better than me. I just make the computers go.
Mm-hmm. I guess not.
I mean, are you speaking of like the teacher getting evaluated, or are you talking about like assessment?
I'm talking about assessment of the students.
Oh, okay. So a lot of our assessments moved to online before COVID. Not all, but what was really challenging, we might have some teacher and parents who are teachers of, if we have any K-1 teachers on who administered the FAST assessment online, that was a really hard test to give online this past year, because it was, and it had to be augmented online because it had assessment questions on there. It was early literacy assessment, and it was like a piece of paper, and it said, point to the picture that starts with the letter B, you know, and so then they would need to point to the picture of the ball. So that all had to be adapted. So that was very hard, difficult to do. The feedback we have gotten with assessments a lot has to do with screen size, and if the students have to read a long passage, getting that whole passage to fit on the screen is also very challenging. So we have given that feedback back to our assessment vendors. We had we adopted new district interim assessments last year in ELA and math, and quite honestly, they were a step in the right direction, but they needed massive improvements, and the test constructs were not good test constructs. So we got rid of that vendor, and we're taking a new route. So yeah, a lot of the assessments really not, I don't know if it's, and I'm kind of blabbering because it really depends on the assessment, but I think the biggest part is those reading passages, and then can you truly authentically assess online is also a big challenge. Trying to distill something into an online platform is really hard. So I think we're, from the assessment world, we'll be able to be back in person to give teachers more authentic assessment options. But yeah, that we have those online assessment challenges, whether we're in person or virtual, just because of the nature of the assessment world going online. Sorry, that was probably way more than you wanted.
Well, no, I appreciate it. Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we are almost a half hour over. So let's, so we are going to, we have our COVID Relief Fund webpage. I have the link here. We'll get that updated, and then we have our weekly e-newsletter that the communication team sends out each Friday. Once we get this video pulled and cleaned and sliced up, we'll update that website. We also made a, like, if you think of anything tonight as you lay in bed or tomorrow, we made a comments feedback form. It'll also be linked to that COVID Relief Fund website, but I made a tiny URL for it, so you could just pull it up. It's DMPS COVID funds. We'll put that up there. So as you lay in bed tonight, not being able to sleep, you can go there and give us more feedback. So I'm going to close it out with another quote. We started with a quote, we'll end with a quote. The greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members. So, I moved here to Des Moines about 15 years ago and started working for DMPS about 10 years ago. And my husband is from Des Moines, and we live in Des Moines, and my friends were like, "How do you know all these people in Des Moines?" Well, because DMPS has a great community of you all that are engaged and constantly and don't give up that just keep coming back to the table, because it's hard to change a system this large. So thank you for staying on for 2 full hours and for your full engagement tonight. So with that, I will let you go. Have a great evening.